If you've been in a relationship or honestly even just scrolled through social media, you've definitely heard of the 5 love languages. It's this huge framework that claims it can unlock the secret to, a happy, lasting love. But is it really a genius tool for connection, or is it just some clever pop psychology? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the science and the psychology behind it all to find.
And this question, what's your love language? It's become so common, right? And that's because it taps into this really fundamental human need we all have. The desire to feel seen, to feel understood, and to feel loved in a way that actually lands with us.
So, just as a quick refresher for anyone who needs it, the whole theory breaks down how we give and receive love into 5 main buckets. First up, you've got words of affirmation, for people who really need to hear, I love you. Then there's acts of service, for when actions truly speak louder than words. We've got receiving gifts, where it's all about the thought and meaning behind the gift. Quality time, which is about getting that pure, undivided attention. And finally, of course, physical touch.
And to say this idea is popular, well, that's a massive understatement. We are talking over 20 million copies sold. It's been hanging out on the New York Times bestseller list since 2007. I mean, come on, this isn't just a book anymore, it's a full-blown cultural phenomenon.
So what is it about this framework? It's been around for 30 years, came from a marriage counselor, so why does it still have such incredible staying power? Well, for a lot of people, it's because it's a simple but really powerful tool for just understanding.
I think this quote from a Reddit user just nails that aha moment so many people have with it. It's this feeling of validation, It's not just about finally understanding your partner, it's about understanding yourself. It gives you a way to talk about needs that can be really hard to put into words, and it helps you realize, hey, I'm not wrong or bad for wanting to be loved in this particular way.
But of course, when something gets this popular, the scrutiny is going to be intense. A lot of psychologists and researchers are, let's say, pretty skeptical. They're asking the tough questions like, does this simple framework actually hold up when you put it under a scientific microscope?
And this quote right here, it gets right to the heart of the professional critique. The idea that you can neatly sort all the complexities of human affection into just 5 little buckets, well, to a lot of experts, that feels like a massive oversimplification of our emotional lives.
In the scientific community, there's this real concern that it might fall into the same category as other popular but scientifically kind of shaky personality tests like the Myers-Briggs. Critics argue that just like those tests, these frameworks can create a sort of confirmation bias, where we focus on the parts that fit us and we kind of just ignore the parts that don't. It feels good, it feels comforting, but it might not be all that accurate.
So what happens when we move past all the opinions and actually look at the hard data? Well, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Researchers have actually put the 5 love languages to the test, and trust me, the results are probably not what you'd expect.
Okay, so let's start with the case against it. A very recent study from 2024 took a serious look at the whole structure of the theory. And while at first glance, 5 categories seemed kind of reasonable, when they put it through a more rigorous analysis, the model just fell apart. Basically, this study found that the classic 5-language structure didn't hold up under strict statistical scrutiny.
But hold on, because the science is not settled. Not by a long shot. A 2022 study that was published in Communication Reports came to a completely different conclusion. This research, it actually found substantial support for those original 5 categories.
So what they did was they looked at hundreds of open-ended responses about how people communicate love. And what they found was that the original 5 languages just kept popping up over and over again. As you can see here, words of affirmation was a huge one, showing up in almost half of all responses. Quality time was right up there too. This suggests that these aren't just random boxes. They actually reflect how people naturally talk about their relationships.
And here is the major plot twist. That same 2022 study, it didn't just confirm the original 5. It found compelling evidence for a brand new 6th love language, one that is especially relevant to the world we live in today.
And they called it check-ins. I mean, think about it. Those quick little texts asking how a big meeting went, or if you got home okay, or even just a simple good morning text. The study says these are brief, momentary efforts to check in on a partner's well-being. They're small, and often digital, but they carry this huge emotional weight. They signal, hey, I'm thinking of you.
Now, this scientific back and forth is fascinating, but some psychologists would argue that we're still just looking at the surface level, that the love languages aren't the cause of anything, but merely a symptom of something much deeper, much more foundational to who we are, our attachment style.
So, attachment theory, which is basically a cornerstone of modern psychology, says that our earliest bonds with our caregivers shape how we connect in our adult relationships.
And this creates 4 main styles. You've got secure, anxious, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant.
And here, this is where it all clicks together. Our attachment style can actually predict which love languages we prefer. So someone with an anxious attachment style, who's always worried about being abandoned, it makes total sense that they'd need words of affirmation and quality time to get that constant reassurance. A dismissive avoidant person who's not so comfortable with big emotions, they might prefer the more practical acts of service. And people with a secure attachment? Well, they tend to be flexible, comfortable giving and getting all different kinds of love.
So after all that, with the conflicting studies and this deeper layer of psychology, how are we supposed to actually use this concept? Well, it seems like the big idea is shifting away from seeing it as this rigid, fixed identity and more towards seeing it as a flexible tool.
I love this analogy from another Reddit user. It just captures the trap so perfectly. Identifying your primary love language is like saying you're right-handed. It doesn't mean you don't have a left hand. We are all multilingual when it comes to love. We just have a native tongue, you know?
So here's the key takeaway, the bottom line. The real value of the 5 love languages isn't in putting you or your partner into a neat little box. Its real power is as a conversation starter. It gives you a shared vocabulary to talk about what makes you feel loved and cared for, and to understand what makes your partner feel the same way.
Ultimately, maybe the goal isn't to diagnose one single, unchanging language. Maybe a much more powerful approach is to just stay curious, to keep the dialogue going, and to ask a simple, direct question that gets right to the heart of everything. Because love isn't static, right? So the ways we show it shouldn't be either.